Okay, so you guys sent in some really interesting stuff this time, huh? Excerpts from How I Met Your Mother, the pilot episode, and then this article, Language Elements and Cultural Context.
Sounds like a fun combo.
It is actually. We're going to do a deep dive into those, focusing on how the characters talk to each other in that first episode. See if we can pick up on some early hints about, the relationships, especially Ted and Robin.
Oh, that'll be interesting. See what the creators might have been subtly setting up from the very beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Like a little behind the scenes peek at the storytelling, using their language as a guide. So, kicking things off with the pilot, right? It's 2005. Older Ted's telling his kids this whole story about how he met their mom. And what gets him on that path is his best friends, Lily and Marshall, getting engaged, which sends Ted, all 27 years of him, into this kind of marriage frenzy.
Right. Like he suddenly realizes, oh, I got to find the one too.
Totally. And then boom, he sees Robin. Instant. Well, something, at least for Ted.
And of course, we can't forget Barney Stinson lurking in the background with his charming wingman tactics.
Oh, yeah. Have you met Ted? Classic.
A true classic. And then what happens? Almost immediately, Ted makes a pretty, shall we say, bold move.
Oh, you mean the I think I'm in love with you bomb on the first date?
That's the one, crickets.
Yeah. Even older Ted, looking back, calls it a stupid move. But what's interesting is what he says later, right? That he wasn't really in love with Robin herself. It was more like as he puts it, the abstract concept of getting married that he was hung up on.
So he's in love with the idea of being in love, not necessarily the actual person.
Exactly. And that actually tells us a lot about Ted right from the start. This impulsive, almost performative way of approaching romance. Maybe it's the pressure to find the one quickly, which you see a lot in sitcoms from that time.
Totally. Like there's this societal expectation to be coupled up, married by a certain age.
Yeah. And it also kind of foreshadows, some of Ted's future issues where he prioritizes the idea of a relationship over the actual person he's with.
Absolutely. Sets the stage for his whole romantic journey, right?
Hmm.
His idealism often clashing with reality. But then what happens? He runs into Robin again.
Oh, yeah. Thanks to Lily and Marshall's well-acted social circle.
Right. Lily spots her from her news reporting gig.
Yeah, and we get that playful "Hello, sailor" line from Lily. Then the big engagement announcement.
Robin seems genuinely happy for them, but as soon as she heads back to work,
Ted's back to square one. Damn it, I'm in love with her. And Barney, ever the voice of reason, well, his version of reason anyway, tells him to move on.
you blew it, it's over. But Ted's already convinced she's the future Mrs. Ted Mosby.
Hopeless romantic. But then Lily steps in, right? She chats with Robin, plays a little matchmaker.
And she comes back with some intel. Robin thinks Ted's sweet, charming. Good signs, right?
Sure, but then comes the kicker. Robin's looking for something casual, while Ted wants the whole shebang, the commitment, the ring, the.
The happily ever after.
Exactly. And that's where we get Lily's classic line. This flapper, Fort Knox. Oops.
Oops is right. She just revealed the whole deal.
And Ted's reaction to the whole casual thing is just priceless. I'm going to be a mushroom cloud of casual.
Oh man, that's so Ted. Instead of, just asking her out directly.
He decides to throw a party, a casual party, of course, for next Friday, he tells her, all nonchalant. Invites her to swing by.
The irony. Planning a whole event to appear casual. So Ted.
It's brilliant writing. And while he's stressing over this casual party, we get this funny side story with, the newly engaged lovebirds.
Lily and Marshall being all lovey-dovey. A stark contrast to Ted's awkward attempts to woo Robin.
Totally. And poor Marshall, trying to study constitutional law while Lily's just showering him with affection.
Can't blame her, though. Newly engaged bliss.
Totally get it. But then comes the chance encounter at the supermarket.
Oh, that's so staged, right? He just happens to be there while Robin's reporting on a kid stuck in a crane machine.
And his attempt to casually invite her to the party. Ugh, so cringeworthy. First he says next Friday, then corrects himself to tonight. blames it on a week of saying next Friday.
Smooth, Ted. Real smooth. But then enter Barney, the dating guru, with his sage advice.
Oh, yeah, his big plan. Ted should be across the room talking to some hot girl when Robin arrives, to make himself look less available. Barney even suggests they move the conversation to the roof.
Crazy monkey style Barney at his finest.
Of course, Ted shoots that down immediately, but Barney, ever the strategist, moves on to his Have You Met Ted game.
Trying to set Ted up with some random party guest who knows a guy named Carlos.
No, naturally. But speaking of the roof, it becomes this symbol for Ted.
Oh, yeah. He's convinced you can't not fall in love on that roof based on, his experiences up there with Lily and Marshall.
Of course. It's all very romantic and idealized, just like Ted. But the first night at the party rolls around and
no Robin. Big disappointment. And then she calls.
Yeah, she's all apologetic about the whole crane machine fiasco at work. And then she says something interesting. She wishes the party was happening that night.
Which Ted takes as a sign, naturally. Party extension. It's now a 2-dayer because, as he so eloquently puts it, that's just how we roll.
Classic Ted. And that phrase, that's just how we roll, it's really common, especially back then. It's like saying, that's our style, casual, unapologetic.
Projecting this image of spontaneity, which, of course, is all carefully orchestrated by Ted.
Totally. So, night 2 of the party, Barney's still trying to set Ted up with other women.
Including that works with Carlos' girl again.
Yeah. But Ted's not having it. He's laser focused on Robin. And he actually ends up using that "I think I'm in love with you" line again, super prematurely.
Poor girl. Barney's just like, thanks, bro. Total sarcasm.
Oh, it's hilarious. But then get this, there's a third party.
A 3-dayer. Because Robin mentioned she might be able to come if the party, kept going.
And Ted, being Ted, throws another party.
Neglecting his law school responsibilities, much to Marshall's annoyance.
Oh, yeah. Poor Marshall, waving his giant law textbook around, completely exasperated.
Understandably so.
Yeah.
His career's on the line. But anyway, back to the third party.
Right, and it's just a train wreck of awkwardness. Robin finally shows up while Marshall's giving Ted a serious reality check. Like, is this girl worth jeopardizing your entire future for? And Ted's trying to backpedal, saying the parties weren't just for her. Then he brings up Carlos out of nowhere. It's painful to watch.
And Robin, she just keeps talking to Carlos, which prompts Barney to have a little intervention with Ted. He lays it all out, right? Ted's looking for marriage, and Robin, she's just not there yet. Maybe not ever. It's that whole recipe for disaster thing Barney's always talking about.
Which is Barney's way of saying, dude, you're setting yourself up for heartbreak. But Ted, ever the optimist, insists Robin's the one.
Classic romantic versus cynic dynamic. And it really sets up their different approaches to relationships throughout the entire series. But then we finally get that rooftop conversation.
The big one. Robin admits there's something between them, some connection, but she's very clear. She doesn't want marriage right now. Maybe never. And she doesn't want to string Ted along.
It's mature, honest communication on Robin's part. And Ted, he tries to use this weird off switch metaphor for his feelings. Like he can just turn them on and off at will.
So Ted, trying to intellectualize his emotions. But Robin sees right through it. She understands how complex feelings are, and despite their totally different wants and expectations, they decide to try being friends.
Which, knowing the show, is just setting the stage for a whole lot more complicated feelings.
Oh, yeah. And Ted's not super thrilled about the friend zone at first. Calls himself a jackass.
A little self-deprecating humor there. But Robin explains why she wants to be friends. She's new in town, always working, hasn't really had time to make friends outside of work.
Makes sense. So they head back to the bar, join Lily, Marshall, and a slightly envious Barney.
Lily gives Ted that sweet pep talk. You are a catch. You're going to make some girl very happy. And then Barney, ever the wingman, can't resist one last, hopeful, hi, have you met Ted?
Leaving things open for future possibilities. Okay, so that's the pilot in a nutshell. Now let's dig into this language elements and cultural context article.
I'm curious to see how language analysis can shed light on the characters.
Me too. It starts with phrasal verbs, which are super common in everyday English, like ask out, which is exactly what Ted considered doing with Robin.
Right, like I asked her out.
Yeah.
It sets this casual tone for their initial interaction.
And then there's run into, which is how Lily describes meeting Robin. Look who I ran into.
Shows how chance encounters are just part of life in a big city.
Exactly. But it's funny how Ted considers not asking Robin out directly. Like he thinks that's more casual, less forward. Maybe it ties into that whole cultural thing of playing it cool in the early stages of dating.
Yeah, totally. You don't want to seem too eager. And then there's bump into, which Ted uses when he's scheming about how to, casually see Robin again.
Oh, yeah. I just gotta bump into her somewhere. Again, emphasizing the accidental nature of the encounter.
When he's clearly orchestrating the whole thing.
Totally. And lastly, for phrasal verbs, there's call up, which is just a casual way of saying to phone someone.
Right. And it's interesting that Ted chooses not to call Robin after, well, the whole love declaration.
Mm.
Shows his uncertainty, maybe even a bit of embarrassment.
Yeah, like he's giving her space, but also hoping she'll reach out to him.
A little passive, maybe. Okay, what's next on the language list?
Idiomatic expressions, those colorful sayings that add flavor to our language.
Like recipe for disaster, which Barney uses when he's talking about Robin and Carlos.
Oh, yeah. It'd be a recipe for disaster. It paints this vivid picture of things going terribly wrong.
And it also highlights Barney's cynical view of relationships,
Yeah.
which of course clashes with Ted's romanticism.
Totally. And then there's Ted's line when he's justifying the extended party. That's just how we roll.
It's a classic. It's basically saying that's our way of doing things with a kind of nonchalant attitude like, we're cool, we're flexible, we roll with the punches.
Exactly. And then there's spin, something as good, which Ted definitely tries to with Robin's initial reaction to him. She's polite, but not exactly, head over heels.
Right. She's lukewarm at best. And Ted's trying to interpret her words in the most positive way possible, which is exactly what spin it as good means.
Yeah, he's trying to convince himself that she's more into him than she probably is. And lastly, for idioms, we have hit the books, which is what Marshall desperately needs to do.
Ah, yes, the student struggle. It means to study intensely, usually for a test or exam.
And it contrasts so well with Ted's partying, right? Highlights that classic tension between work and play.
For sure. All right, what about slang? Any juicy examples from the pilot?
Definitely. The article points out a few, like jackass, which Ted calls himself after the rooftop talk with Robin.
A classic way to say I messed up, but in more casual, self-deprecating way.
Totally. And then there's dude and bro, which are like the go-to terms of endearment for Ted and Barney.
Typical guy talk.
Yeah.
Shows their close bond, their casual camaraderie.
And then we have Carlos, Mr. Laidback, with his no sweat response.
A super relaxed way of saying no problem. Fits his chill personality perfectly.
Yeah, it's concise, casual, and very American. But then there's Ted's questionable use of mamacita.
Oh, yeah, that moment.
Cringy.
It's a flirtatious Spanish term for an attractive woman, but Ted, using it on Robin, whom he barely knows, comes across as, well, inappropriate.
Yeah.
And maybe even a little culturally insensitive.
Definitely not his smoothest move. It's like he's trying too hard to be charming, but it backfires.
Yeah, not a great example of cultural borrowing. All right, what's the last category?
Advanced vocabulary, just a few sprinkled throughout the episode.
Like when older Ted uses excruciating detail to describe his story. Sets the stage for, a very thorough, maybe even overly detailed recounting of events.
Definitely. An abstract concept is key to understanding Ted's initial infatuation. He's not really in love with Robin, but with the idea of marriage itself.
Right. He's romanticizing the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then there's Marshall's worry about jeopardizing his law career.
Shows the serious stakes, right?
Yeah.
He's stressed about Ted's partying, potentially affecting his future.
Makes sense. Law school's no joke.
Definitely not. And then there are words that just add flavor, like affectionate to describe Lily and Marshall, or drafting, referring to Ted's architectural work.
And statutes, grounding Marshall firmly in his legal world.
It's amazing how these different levels of language, from slang to more formal vocabulary, all contribute to the storytelling. And when you look at all the informal language, the slang, the idioms, it paints this picture of early 2000s urban life, right?
Totally. It captures the social scene, the dating culture, the casual vibe, like those swing by invitations.
Exactly. And the contrast with the more professional vocabulary shows how multifaceted these characters are. They have their careers, their aspirations, alongside their social lives.
And even the cultural borrowing, like mamacita, even when it's misused, reflects the diversity of a city like New York.
So, zooming back out, what can we say about Ted and Robin based on their initial language, especially in light of the cultural context?
Well, right from the start, their contrasting desires and personalities come through, not just in what they say, but in how they say it. Ted's often more formal, or he tries too hard with these kind of old fashioned romantic gestures, and Robin's much more direct, casual, less sentimental.
So, they're speaking different love languages, basically.
Exactly. And you can see how Ted, trying to adopt that more casual style, like with that's just how we roll, it feels a bit forced because it's not really him.
Yeah, it's like he's putting on a persona to impress her.
And that subtle difference in their communication styles, it hints at deeper incompatibilities.
It makes you wonder how much of their future conflict was already there, embedded in those early conversations.
Right. Like their different understandings of dating, relationships, all influenced by the culture they're in.
It's fascinating stuff. So, to our listeners out there, we have a challenge for you.
Go back and watch the pilot episode of How I Met Your Mother. But this time, pay close attention to the language.
See if you notice any nuances, any phrases, any word choices that maybe hint at future conflicts or possibilities.
You might be surprised at what you discover when you really tune in to the way characters speak.
It adds a whole new layer of depth to the story. And this applies to any show, any movie, any book, really.
Absolutely. Language is powerful. It reveals so much about characters, their motivations, their relationships.
So, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of language and storytelling.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.